Most men think pulling back makes a woman forget them, but that is not always what happens. When you pull back the right way, something changes inside the emotional space between you and her. She may not say it. She may not text first. She may not admit that your silence affected her. In fact, she may act like she is completely fine, like your absence means nothing, like she is too busy to notice, too proud to care, or too emotionally detached to feel the shift. But deep inside, when a man who used to give her attention, energy, warmth, and presence suddenly becomes calm, quiet, and less available, her mind starts asking questions her ego does not want to answer. This is where many men misunderstand female psychology. They think pulling back means playing games, punishing her, ignoring her to hurt her, or trying to force her to chase. But that kind of distance usually smells like insecurity. A woman can feel when a man is pulling back because he is angry, needy, or secretly desperate for a reaction. That kind of silence does not feel powerful. It feels emotional. It feels like a man pretending not to care while still waiting for her to notice. But when a man pulls back from self-respect, not revenge, the energy is completely different. Because the moment you stop overreaching, over-explaining, over-texting, over-giving, and over-trying, she no longer feels your attention as something guaranteed. She starts feeling the absence of what she was used to receiving. She starts noticing the space where your energy used to be. And even if she does not reach out immediately, even if she stays silent, even if she tries to convince herself that she is not affected, something inside her begins to compare. She compares the calm you created with the noise around her. She compares your emotional control with the men who keep chasing. She compares your absence with the access she once had. Now, this video is not about manipulation. It is not about making a woman suffer, creating anxiety, or turning love into a power game. It is about understanding what she secretly feels when you stop chasing and start choosing yourself. It is about the psychology of absence, emotional contrast, self-respect, and how a man's energy becomes more valuable when he stops giving it away carelessly. Because sometimes pulling back does not make her forget you. Sometimes it makes her feel the weight of you for the first time. Before we go on, everything I teach on this channel, every reason, every truth, it's a map. But a map only takes you so far. At some point, you have to actually walk the road. That road is the community. It's where men stop collecting insight and start collecting proof. Proof that they can hold their frame, master their emotions, and build the kind of presence that doesn't need to perform. You don't rent this, you own it. One decision, made once, and every course, every future lesson, every tool we ever release, yours permanently. No renewals, no countdown. Just a door that opens once and stays open. If you're tired of almost changing, the link is below. Walk through it. Now. Let's begin. Section 1. She feels the sudden loss of access to your energy. The first thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the sudden loss of access to your energy. This is one of the most powerful shifts in female psychology, because many women do not fully realize how much of a man's presence they have become used to until it is no longer available in the same way. Maybe you were the one who always texted first, always checked on her, always kept the conversation alive, always explained your feelings, always tried to fix the tension, always made her feel noticed, even when she was not giving much back. And while she may not have consciously disrespected that energy, she may have become comfortable with it. She may have started assuming that your attention would always be there, no matter how little effort she gave in return. This is where pulling back changes the emotional atmosphere. When you stop giving the same level of access, she feels a gap, not always immediately and not always openly, but she feels it. The message that usually came is no longer there. The emotional effort that used to keep things warm becomes quieter. The man who used to reach across the distance now stays in his own frame. And suddenly, she is left with space. Space to notice. Space to wonder. Space to compare how it felt when your attention was present and how it feels now that you are no longer handing it out automatically. The hidden mistake many men make is thinking that pulling back means disappearing with anger. That is not the point. If you pull back with bitterness, your energy still belongs to her, because your silence is still about her reaction. But when you pull back because you value your peace, your time, and your self-respect, she feels something different. She feels that your attention was not weakness. It was a choice. And when a woman realizes that your energy was a choice, not something she owned, your value rises. For example, if she used to delay replies and you kept chasing, she learned that your attention was predictable. But if she delays and you simply continue your life calmly, without drama, without punishment, without over-explaining, she feels the shift. She may not say, "I miss your energy," but she notices that the emotional comfort she had from your presence is no longer guaranteed. That is why pulling back works when it comes from self-respect. Because sometimes she does not understand the value of your presence until your absence starts speaking for you. Section 2. She starts wondering if she misjudged your value. The second thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the uncomfortable question of whether she misjudged your value. This is one of the strongest emotional shifts because many women do not always measure a man's importance while he is fully available. When a man is always there, always explaining, always reaching out, always forgiving, and always trying to keep the connection alive, his effort can become part of the background. She may enjoy it, depend on it, and even expect it. But she may not fully respect it because it never feels like something she can lose. Then suddenly, when you pull back calmly and stop handing out your energy like it has no cost, she starts seeing you differently. This is where the dynamic changes. She may ask herself, "Did I take him for granted? Was he more valuable than I thought? Why is he not chasing like before? Did he finally stop caring? Did I lose access to someone who actually cared about me?" She may not admit these questions to you. She may not even admit them to herself at first. Pride can be strong. Ego can be loud. But when your absence is calm, consistent, and not emotional, it creates reflection. It makes her feel that maybe the man she thought would always be there had more self-respect than she expected. The hidden mistake many men make is trying to prove their value while they are still chasing. They send long messages. They explain how much they did. They remind her of everything they gave. They try to make her understand their worth through words. But value is rarely felt through explanation. It is felt through absence, contrast, and consequence. When you stop overproving and start moving with dignity, your value becomes something she has to feel, not something you have to defend. For example, if she used to respond late and you always replied immediately, she may have felt secure in your availability. But if you pull back and stop rewarding low effort with full energy, she begins to notice that access to you is not automatic anymore. And that is when your value becomes clearer. Because sometimes a woman does not realize she underestimated you until your silence forces her to meet the version of you that no longer begs to be seen. Section 3. She feels the difference between your absence and other men's attention. The third thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the difference between your absence and other men's attention. This is something many men never understand because they think attention is always the strongest form of attraction. They believe if they keep texting, keep complimenting, keep reacting, keep showing interest, and keep staying available, she will feel more connected to them. But attention is not powerful when it has no weight. Attention becomes powerful when it comes from a man who respects himself enough not to give it endlessly. And when you pull back from a place of dignity, she may suddenly realize that other men can give her attention, but they cannot always replace the emotional weight your presence carried. This is where female psychology becomes very interesting. A woman may have other men watching her stories, liking her pictures, sending messages, complimenting her beauty, and trying to get her attention. But if those men feel too eager, too predictable, or too easy to access, their attention may feel cheap. It can make her feel desired, but not deeply impacted. Then she compares that energy with yours. You may not be chasing anymore, but your silence has structure. You may not be texting like before, but your absence has meaning. You may not be fighting for her attention, but your calm distance makes her feel the difference between being wanted by many and being valued by one man who no longer overextends himself. The hidden mistake many men make is trying to compete with other men by becoming louder than them. They see her getting attention and panic. They start sending more messages, posting more indirect stories, trying harder to remind her they exist. But that only places them in the same crowd. The man who stands out is not always the one who talks the most. It is often the one who has enough self-respect to stop participating in a competition that lowers his value. For example, if she is used to men chasing her, your calm pullback feels different. It does not feel like another man begging for a place in her life. It feels like a man who had a place, noticed the energy was not being respected, and quietly stepped back. That creates contrast. And contrast is what makes the mind return. Because when your absence feels more powerful than their attention, she starts realizing something she did not expect. You are not just another man giving her energy. You were the one whose energy actually had weight. Section 4. She starts feeling the emotional space you used to fill. The fourth thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the emotional space you used to fill. This is one of the quietest but strongest effects of absence, because a woman may not fully understand how much your presence shaped her emotional routine until your energy is no longer there in the same way. Maybe you were the one who made her feel noticed after a long day. Maybe you were the one who gave her calm attention when her life felt noisy. Maybe your messages gave her comfort, your voice gave her ease, your patience gave her softness, or your presence made her feel seen in a way she did not admit out loud. And when you pull back, that space does not disappear immediately. It becomes empty first. Then she starts feeling it. This is where many men misunderstand the power of pulling back. They think the goal is to make her panic. They think the goal is to hurt her. They think if she does not reach out quickly, then the pullback failed. But emotional absence does not always work like an explosion. Sometimes it works like a quiet room after music stops. At first, she may act normal. She may stay busy. She may pretend she does not notice. She may even tell herself that your distance is not important. But then small moments begin to hit her. She checks her phone and your name is not there. She thinks of something she would have told you, but you are no longer reaching in. She feels a little silence where your warmth used to be, and suddenly your absence becomes a feeling, not just a fact. Female psychology often responds deeply to emotional rhythm. When your attention was part of her rhythm, she may have taken it for granted, but when the rhythm changes, her mind notices. Not because you are forcing her to miss you, but because you removed the emotional support she was receiving without fully appreciating it. This is why a man must not rush back too quickly. If he pulls back today and panics tomorrow, he teaches her that his absence has no strength. But if he remains calm, respectful, and centered, the emotional space has time to speak. For example, if she used to receive your warmth every night and now she feels the quiet, she may not say, "I miss him." But her mood may shift. Her curiosity may rise. Her thoughts may return to you when she least expects it. Because sometimes she does not feel your value when you are constantly filling the space. She feels it when the space becomes empty enough to remind her what you were giving. Section 5. She wonders if your silence means you finally chose yourself. The fifth thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the question of whether your silence means you finally chose yourself. This is a powerful emotional shift, because when a man has been too available for too long, a woman may start believing that his attention is attached to her no matter what she does. She may not think this consciously. She may not say, "He will always be there," but her behavior can show it. She may take longer to reply, give less effort, act distant, test your patience, or assume that you will keep reaching out because that is what you have always done. Then suddenly, when you stop moving toward her with the same urgency, she feels something different. She feels that maybe the man who used to choose her first has finally started choosing himself. This is where many men misunderstand the emotional power of pulling back. They think it works because it makes her jealous or afraid. But the deeper power is not fear. It is respect. When you pull back from a place of self-worth, she senses that your world is no longer built around her reaction. You are not sitting there waiting for her to reply. You are not adjusting your whole mood around her attention. You are not begging the connection to feel alive by carrying all the effort alone. You are returning to your own life, your own peace, your own standards, and your own masculine center. And that shift can make her question how much access she still has to you. Female psychology often responds strongly when a man becomes less emotionally controllable. If she knew that silence would make you chase, and suddenly you do not chase, She feels the pattern break. If she knew that distance would make you explain, and suddenly you stay calm, she feels that something changed. If she expected you to keep proving your care, but you stop auditioning for her attention, she begins to wonder whether you have reached a new level of self-respect. And that thought can stay in her mind because it challenges the version of you she thought she understood. For example, if she pulls away and you always ask, "Are we okay?" she feels your insecurity. But if she pulls away and you remain calm, respectful, and focused on your own life, she feels your strength. Not because you punish her, but because you no longer abandon yourself to manage her distance. That is why your silence can affect her deeply. Because sometimes when you pull back, she does not just feel your absence. She feels the man you became when you stopped needing her permission to value yourself. Section 6, she feels the fear of losing the version of you she took for granted. The sixth thing she secretly feels when you pull back is the fear of losing the version of you she quietly took for granted. This is deeper than simply missing a text or noticing your silence. It is the emotional realization that the man who used to be easy to reach, easy to rely on, easy to affect, and always emotionally present may no longer be available in the same way. And that can create a kind of quiet discomfort inside her, because people often do not fully appreciate what they have while it is still predictable. They appreciate it when they feel it slipping. She may not have planned to lose you. She may not have thought about what life would feel like without your softness, your patience, your steady attention, or your willingness to keep showing up. But when you pull back with calm consistency, she begins to sense that the version of you she had access to is no longer standing there waiting in the same position. This is where many men make the mistake of returning too quickly. The moment they feel her energy shift, they rush back in, explain everything, or start giving the same effort again because they are afraid of losing the moment. But when you do that, you remove the very contrast that was making her feel your value. Pulling back only becomes powerful when it is real. Not as a trick, but as a reflection of a man who is no longer willing to be taken lightly. And when she feels that your energy is no longer guaranteed, she starts confronting a truth her ego may resist. Maybe she had more access to you than she deserved, and maybe that access is no longer hers by default. In female psychology, the fear of losing something meaningful often awakens reflection faster than constant reassurance ever could. A woman may ignore what is always there, but she thinks differently when she feels that a man's warmth, attention, and emotional presence are no longer automatic. She may remember how you made her feel. She may replay your tone, your patience, your consistency, your effort, and the quiet security your presence used to bring. Not because she suddenly became emotional overnight, but because your absence forced her to face the value of what she had become used to. For example, if she was comfortable knowing you would always check in and now you no longer do, she may start feeling a subtle loss she cannot easily replace, not just of attention, but of emotional certainty. And certainty, once removed, often becomes more valuable in memory than it ever was in the moment. That is why pulling back can affect her so deeply. Because sometimes she does not fear losing a man. She fears losing the version of you she assumed would always stay available no matter how little she gave back. Section 7. She secretly feels that your distance made you more emotionally powerful. The seventh thing she secretly feels when you pull back is that your distance made you more emotionally powerful. This is something many men do not understand because they believe power in attraction comes from doing more. More texting, more explaining, more complimenting, more proving, more attention, more emotional effort. But sometimes, the moment a man stops doing too much is the exact moment his energy becomes stronger. Not because he becomes cruel, not because he stops caring, but because he stops pouring his value into a place where it was not being respected. And when a woman feels that shift, she begins to see him differently. This is where the hidden psychology becomes powerful. When you were always reaching, she may have felt that your emotions were easy to access. Your care was visible, your desire was obvious, your patience was predictable. But when you pull back calmly, your emotional world becomes less available. She no longer knows exactly what you feel. She no longer feels certain that you are waiting. She no longer has complete access to your thoughts, your reactions, your mood, or your next move. And that creates a new kind of presence. You become less readable, less controllable, and less emotionally dependent. That is what makes your distance feel powerful. The mistake many men make is thinking they need to tell her they changed. They post things, they send indirect messages. They try to show her they do not care. They act cold, hoping she will notice. But real power does not need announcement. A woman feels real distance when your behavior changes without emotional performance. You are still respectful, but no longer over-available. You are still calm, but no longer chasing. You are still open to healthy energy, but no longer rewarding confusion, disrespect, or low effort. For example, if she reaches out casually after taking you for granted, the old version of you may have responded immediately with excitement. But the stronger version responds with calm balance. You do not punish her, but you also do not hand her full access just because she returned with one message. You let your energy show that your time still has value. And that is what she secretly feels. She feels that your distance did not make you weaker. It made you harder to reach emotionally. And when a man becomes harder to reach because he finally respects himself, his presence becomes more powerful than his chasing ever was. In short, when you pull back, understand this clearly. The point is not to punish her, scare her, or play emotional games. The point is to stop giving unlimited access to a woman who has not been matching your energy. A strong man does not pull back because he wants revenge. He pulls back because he finally realizes that chasing, over-explaining, over-texting, and over-giving will never create real respect if the woman has already started taking his presence for granted. And this is what she secretly feels. She feels the sudden loss of your energy. She feels the empty space where your attention used to be. She starts wondering whether she misjudged your value. She begins comparing your quiet absence with the easy attention of other men. She notices that you are no longer reacting the same way, no longer waiting in the same place, no longer begging to be understood, and no longer making her the center of your emotional world. And even if she acts calm, even if she does not reach out first, even if she hides behind pride, something inside her feels the shift. But remember this, pulling back only works when it is real. If you pull back for one day and then panic because she did not respond, that is not self-respect. That is strategy wearing the mask of strength. If you go silent only to check whether she misses you, your silence still belongs to her. But when you pull back because you are returning to yourself, your energy changes. You become calmer. You become harder to control. You become less predictable. You become a man who no longer abandons his peace to keep a connection alive by himself. That is the kind of distance a woman feels deeply. Not distance filled with anger, not silence filled with bitterness, but the quiet absence of a man who finally remembered his own value. So stop asking, will she miss me if I pull back? Ask a stronger question. Am I pulling back because I respect myself or because I am secretly waiting for her reaction? Because the first one makes you powerful. The second one keeps you attached. And when you truly pull back from self-respect, she may not say it directly, but she feels it. She feels that the man who once gave her easy access is no longer standing there with open hands, waiting to be chosen. And sometimes that is when she finally understands what your presence was worth. Comment below. What do you think she feels most when a man pulls back? Curiosity, regret, fear, or respect? And if this gave you clarity, subscribe for more deep lessons on female psychology, emotional control, silence, boundaries, and becoming the kind of man whose absence speaks louder than his chasing ever could.